Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. If you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Today, we are continuing our Summer Shootaround series that we'll be doing over a 7-week span. We've already published episodes on Arizona, Arkansas, Baylor, Connecticut, and Creighton. We're working in alphabetical order, so now we're turning our attention to Duke. Last season, Duke went 27-9 overall, 14-6 in the ACC, finished tied for third in the league standings with Pitt and Clemson, one game back of Miami and Virginia. Blue Devils won the ACC tournament. Then they got a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Then they beat Oral Roberts in the round of 64 before losing to Tennessee in the round of 32. They finished 18th at Ken Palm. The top 4 scorers from that team, they're all back. Cal Filipowski, Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, Mark Mitchell, which is why I've got the Blue Devils ranked 3rd in the top 25 and 1. We'll see what Norlander thinks about it next. But first, a word from our partners.
When you're the FedEx Cup champion, your name's on this trophy forever.
This is our season-long race. This is the sought-after trophy when we tee it up, the first event of the season that you think about.
Three tournaments with the world's best golfers battling for the tour's toughest trophy to win, the FedEx Cup. The playoffs begin August 12th on CBS.
All right, Deadleg. Duke as a preseason top 3 team. Can you dig it? Or do you despise it?
For a little alliteration purposes, I'm going to let that one go. But in your little script there, let's mix in a new one, a new post-break dig or despise. Is it too much to ask?
It is too much to ask.
It's feeling a little formulaic at this point.
It is
top 3 team. I can maybe get there. You mentioned on our Creighton episode that the more you dig into a team, sometimes you find yourself really liking them, or in the case of a Marquette, you really can't stand them.
It's going to be me and Shaka Smart and Greg McDermott and Scott Drew at Dan Hurley at a Final
Shaka's
Four
there now too.
table.
Okay. Shaka's there too. Okay.
Yeah, I got Shaka there too.
The more I look at the Duke roster, the more I like it, which is just going to come as a shock to the haters who insist that I hate Duke, which is always funny. And then there's the group that insisted on
When you're the FedEx Cup champion.
What do you want from me there? No Whitehead, no Lively. But those 2 players combined to give you 14 points a game last season, GP. And they're not available for most of the season. The fact that you got Filipowski back, Jeremy Roach back, and Proctor, those are the big 3. Mark Mitchell, I think, makes a nice move here in his second season. Ryan Young was just a 6.4 point per game kind of guy, but there were games last season where he was like one of the 2 most important dudes on the floor for Duke. And of course, GP will lay out the freshmen they got coming in just a second. But among all the things to track for Duke this season, I think the biggest one is year 2 for Scheyer. The 1-year trial period, let's see how this goes. That's over. Duke was good last season. As I said on a couple of episodes earlier this year, Duke passed the test. Scheyer did a really good job. Now, and some head coaches believe that year 2 is actually tougher than year 1. Year 1, because you get a little bit of the grace period, but year 2, it's a little more of your guys in there, and you really got to show what you're made of, what you can do. So I think there's going to be a lot of inherent pressure around Duke this season that I don't think was there last season. I think now, because you have big names returning and you had a relatively good season last season, there will be this all right, if this is going to be Duke under Scheyer, if they're going to be the real deal, then let's see a team that is in the top 10 for most of the season. Can they do that? And if they do, then I think the biggest question after that is, does Flip make the jump to be an All-American? He was one of the 5 best freshmen in the country last season. He was a top 25 player in the sport last season. And I think maybe we're going to wind up getting pretty crowded here as we slowly start to build our list for top 101 players. But I think that Filipowski should be a top 15 player in the country.
What?
As
way
a sophomore?
Way higher.
You think it should be way higher?
Yes.
I mean, it could potentially be there, but I'm saying he should be that. His return is pivotal to the preseason projections, the fact that they're in this top 3. I think that's the biggest element to Duke's ceiling, GP. That, and if you have been listening to all of our episodes, we actually referenced this on the Creighton show. Will Jeremy Roach and Tyrese Proctor become the top backcourt combo in the sport? I think the potential is there for it. And if they do, then Duke is national championship worthy. They'll be in that contention. They can win the ACC. But I think that those things have to happen. I think Roach and Proctor have to be, if not the best backcourt, one of the 2 or 3 best backcourts in the country. And Filipowski has to be a first, second, or third team All-American in order to get there. They have plenty of support around him. That's just an initial look at the roster. What do you see, Parrish?
Well, on Filipowski, I see somebody who could maybe be a preseason first team All-American. I haven't looked at that yet, but he's on a team that is going to get votes for number 1 in the preseason. And he averaged 15 points, 9 rebounds a game last season. The 3-point shooting wasn't very good, 28%. That's got to improve. He's not much of a rim protector, less than 1 block per game, despite being 7'1". So he kind of needs to show that he's better at both of those things, or at least better at one of those things, to improve his position as an NBA draft prospect. But he's a guy that do you think he would have been a first-round pick if he entered the 2023 NBA draft?
Good question. Yeah, I do. I do too. In the 20s, but I do think that he would have been a first-round pick. Maybe the 3-point shooting would have prevented that, but I think he displayed enough. If anything, the dude kept getting. I mean, this guy, did he get 3 concussions last season? Like, he was getting beat up all of the damn time. Hopefully, he can avoid any of that stuff moving forward. But whether or not he was or not, call him a top 35 NBA prospect. The fact that Duke gets a guy like that to come back is a major deal, and obviously NIL has to do with it, but it also helps the sport. To be honest, like, if Duke is in the top 5 conversation in the preseason and they have recognizable players, now that K is gone, a very good thing for college basketball. And you're not wrong about the preseason expectations. I just want to be clear about differentiating. Like, there's one thing to have those expectations, and he's got to actually do it. So I think there's a good chance he's a first, second, or third team All-American, but he still needs to make the jump. There's no automatic about it. It'll be one of the bigger plot lines at the top of the polls in the first month of the season.
There are a handful of guys over the years, and I think Blake Griffin is the best example of this. They come in as 5-star prospects. They have really good freshman seasons. They could enter the draft and be a first-round pick, but then they decide to come back to school, and they really do take it to another level. And I think Filipowski's that guy. There's only so many statistical things he's going to be able to do because he's playing with other great players, right? Jeremy Roach is really good. Tyrese Proctor is really good. Mark Mitchell is really good. All these guys should be better in theory than they've ever been. So I don't think Filipowski can go up to 24 points a game and 12 rebounds because he's surrounded by other pieces.
That would stun me if he had that. If he had those numbers, he might be the player of the year, frankly, even knowing Edey's out there. Like, that would be an outrage.
Yeah, I think he's got too many other good players around him that are proven contributors at this level that it's just going to be hard for his points per game, rebounds per game to go up dramatically. We'll see. But I think we could look up and you're going, is Cal Filipowski one of the 3 best players in college basketball this season? That would not surprise me at all. He's the main reason why I have Duke 3rd in the top 25 and 1 and picked to win the ACC. If you're curious, in the ACC, I've got Duke at 3. I got Duke winning the league, 3rd in the top 25 and 1. I've got Miami finishing 2nd in the league, 10th in the top 25 and 1. North Carolina finishing 3rd in the league, 22nd in the top 25 and 1. If you look at last season's record, Duke, it doesn't look that great. They lost to Virginia on February 11th to fall to 17-8 overall.
Controversial loss, by the way, but yes.
Why was it controversial? I don't even remember.
What?
I don't remember it.
Filipowski.
Oh yeah, something happened. I know it was at the buzzer. It was a buzzer thing.
Correct. Yes. And
who got screwed? Duke or Virginia?
No.
They reversed a call and they went to replay and got it wrong. Is that right?
Correct. And Virginia wound up winning the game in overtime. Duke should have won it in regulation.
They went to the replay and got it wrong. Yes. That's right.
Yeah, the process therein. We don't need to relitigate. Trust me, Duke fans.
Duke got screwed. Is that right? Duke got screwed.
I think there is the argument there that was the case. Virginia
That's the
fans don't
thing.
want to hear any of it. That was Duke's last loss, by the way, until they got stomped
right.
by Virginia.
Duke, and that's the other thing with Duke. And I know, hardcore basketball fans know it, but they're just constantly getting screwed by the officials.
It's been going on for at least 25 years at this point.
Just constantly getting screwed by the officials. And the Virginia game last season was the latest example of that.
Yep.
Hopefully, maybe one day Duke will get treated fairly on the court.
Can we have Duke get one call?
Can Duke get one call?
Can Duke get one call?
Can Duke get one call? You would think one of the biggest brands in the sport would get a whistle every once in a while, but not really. Not really.
Let's go.
So after they lost to Virginia, like you mentioned, they went 10-1 the rest of the way. There's a span of 4+ weeks, and in that stretch from the day after the Virginia game, so February 12th through the end of the season, Duke was the 4th best team in the country, according to BartTorvik.com. Trivia time. Who were the top 3 in the country? Only ahead of Duke from February 12th on.
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga was one of them. Yes, Gonzaga was
Houston.
3rd. Not Houston.
There's like a weird one in there. Not Houston.
No, but in the state of Texas.
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga's not in the state of Texas.
I know. I know that. Was it A&M?
Nope.
Was it Baylor?
Nope. Say Texas A&M, but then leave off A&M.
Just Texas. How about
Texas was
there?
second, and UConn was first.
And I was going to say UConn. So
from February 12th through the end of the season, the top 4 teams in the country were UConn, Texas, Gonzaga, and Duke. So they got good last season. And now the top 4 scorers from that team are back. I've got Kansas number 1 in the top 25-1. I've got Purdue number 2. But I don't – if anybody wants to make a case that Duke should be the preseason number 1 or Duke should be the favorite to win the national title, it's totally reasonable. They're going to be really, really – they should be really, really good.
I don't know who's going to play the 5. Like, Flip didn't play 5 last year because of Lively. Ryan Young is a 5. I don't know if he's expected to start. Mark Mitchell is really good. One of those two will play the 5. They've got a lot of big wings on this roster. In addition to guys like Jaden Shutt and Jalen Blakes, who are role players, but, we'll see if they get more burn here. I've got the freshmen here in front of me, but I presume you do as well. Do you want to run down the newbies here on campus in Durham?
Yeah, like if I'm looking at a projected starting lineup, we know 4 of them for sure, right? Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, Mark Mitchell, Kyle Filipowski. Those guys are starting. Yeah. Who you want to put with them? I think the best candidate, the most obvious candidate, I'll put it that way, is Ryan Young, 6'10" senior. He's just a role player. 6 points, 5 rebounds, 17 minutes a game. Last season, he was behind Lively and Filipowski. Now Lively's gone. I think the most obvious thing to do is you just slide him in there.
But Flip, Mitchell, and Young together, how often would they be? That might be the starting 5. How often would they be on the floor? I just wonder with that. I don't know. You're not wrong, but I think
you could play those guys together. I think
you probably can as well. And those are your 5 most accomplished players, so that does make sense. But there is,
but they do have it like the number 2 ranked recruiting class in the country belongs to Duke. So if they go Roach, Proctor, Mitchell, Filipowski, Young, how about this? They'd have 4 top 25 freshmen coming off their bench.
Yeah.
Jared McCain, TJ Power, Sean Stewart, Caleb Foster. None of them are what you would call 5s or traditional bigs. But, boy, when you got 4 top 25 prospects coming off your bench, it speaks to the level of talent within your program. Whether Duke will have the best team or not, we'll see. I don't think there's any question, top to bottom rosters, nobody's got a more talented roster than Jon Scheyer.
Yeah, this is something that occasionally comes up with me and with our buddy Jeff Borzello. I wonder if he would agree with you on that. Stewart's a 6'9" power forward out of Windermere, Florida. McCain is a 6'3" combo guard out of Sacramento. Foster is a 6'5" wing from nearby Harrisburg, North Carolina. And then TJ Powers, another power forward, 6'9". I guess by definition, I could kind of, if you told me he was able to float, I'd believe it, from Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. So we'll see how they get mixed in. You got 4 guys who have been either the man or certainly at worst the number 2 option for the most part over their high school careers. Some of these guys obviously went the prep level there, and they're with other talented high major players. But Sheyer's got an interesting concoction with this roster because you have the vets and because you have some megawatt players here in addition to all the young guys. It will be intriguing. Who's going to be the key freshman is another question for me. I don't know. Stewart, I could see it being Stewart. I like Powers' game plenty. Don't know a lot about McCain, to be honest. And Foster I've seen play a little bit, and I do like him as well. So there's a litany of options, and we'll see how the minutes wind up breaking down. You got anything else before we get to the schedule?
Well, also on the bench they'll have Jalen Blakes. I'm always fascinated. Like, what do you think he's up to?
To be honest, I haven't thought a minute about what Jalen Blakes has been up to for the past couple of months.
Well, that's sort of my point.
Like, what's he doing right now? I got no idea, man. I'm sure they had workouts today.
What do you think he's doing right now?
Yeah, I got no thoughts on Jalen Blakes.
So he's ranked 188th in the class of 2021 and goes to Duke, which makes no sense whatsoever, unless it's your dream to sit on the bench at Duke.
But you know what? Maybe there is something to that. Like, maybe you just want to be around a program like that, see if you can earn it. And I'm not going to presume what his priorities are. And you get to
yeah. No, like his priorities. Yeah. How about this? His priorities quite clearly have to be something other than playing basketball.
Or playing it a lot. I hear you.
Yeah, because you know when you're ranked, you got to know when you're ranked 188th in the country, you ain't playing at Duke as a freshman. So he played 4.5 minutes, and then last year he played 13.6 minutes, and now here he is, probably buried on the bench again because they're recruiting more talented guys. I don't like. On one hand, you know what? If I sat down with him and he said, "GP, like it's all good, I appreciate you worrying about me, but I'm cool." My goals are not to be in the NBA or even.
He's not calling you GP. He's like, who the hell are you, man?
No, he would call me GP. He would say GP. Buddy, wait till I get I'm gonna get Jalen Blakes on the phone and teach him how to reference me. He says, GP, I'm everybody who plays at Duke gets into coaching if they want to, or gets into media if they want to. I'm getting one of the 20 best educations you can get in the country. I'm good, baby. I'd say that's very mature of you.
I would agree.
I'd say that's very mature of you. But I don't know. I'd like to play, and he's at a place where he's just probably never going to play.
All right.
90% of people like him in a situation like his would have transferred already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. He's a bulldog on the floor. I know that much. He's got some real gumption to his game.
He's a bulldog on the bench.
Okay, stop hating on Jalen. My apologies to Jalen Blakes.
Mine too. I didn't mean to. I just think it's interesting that he's still there.
I understand what you're saying. They had a player like this 4 or 5 years ago. He got recruited. Who was this dude? Duke fans know automatically what I'm talking about. Hold on. Who was lowly rated out of high school, but he was recruited by K that said, I'm going to go and I'm going to play there. Who was this? Jordan Goldwire. Remember Jordan Goldwire?
Yeah. He
played at Duke for 4 years, got his degree, and then went and then transferred as a grad transfer and got some burn there at Oklahoma. So maybe that's Blakes' path as well. He's
headed to Norman. He's next stop, Norman.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, on that note, Duke just added a coach to its roster because they lost
Emil
Jefferson to the Boston Celtics. Emil Jefferson it feels like he got out of college 3 years ago, and now he's an assistant in the NBA with the Celtics, which more power to him. I think that's absolutely awesome. But he went up to Boston, so they had to fill the spot. And so lo and behold, and I'm guessing there's some sort of Chicago connection, Emmanuel Dildy, who was at Oklahoma, is leaving the Sooners to join the staff at Duke. So we have actually a little bit of coaching transaction that happened shortly before we did this episode. And so there we go. So now Porter Mosier is on the hunt for an assistant.
Jalen Blakes, Boston Celtics assistant, going to do 2 more years at Duke. And then 3 years after that, he'll be on staff with the Celtics.
There we go. All right, here's the schedule. Versus Dartmouth. This is a solid schedule. I wish they had one more notable game. Versus Dartmouth, home against Arizona, second game of the season. Then against Michigan State in the Champions Classic. Then they've got this Blue Devil MTE. What are we doing with this thing? Bucknell, LaSalle, Indiana State. The way that I understand this is that this got contracted, and I think it might be the last year, and then there's not going to be the Blue Devil MTE in existence in the years to come. Then we've got at Arkansas, which we detailed on the Arkansas Summer Shootaround. So that's the one on-conference road game here. Then it's going to be home against Charlotte, home against Hofstra, Duke will play Baylor in the Garden shortly before Christmas, and then the last non-con game is home against Queen College. And then here is the ACC schedule. They go home and away, obviously against UNC, in addition to Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Notre Dame, and Pitt. So the home and away, I think, is actually advantageous to Duke overall. Only home games: Boston College, Clemson, Q's. Virginia comes to Cameron Indoor. Duke will not go to Virginia this season. It did last season. Road games only, not going to Durham. Florida State, Miami on the road. That's when they only get one game against Miami. Only NC State on the road. Only Virginia Tech on the road. Arizona, Michigan State, at Arkansas, Baylor on a neutral. 4 prime time big non-con games against high majors. I am setting the over-under at 24.5 wins for the Duke Blue Devils in year 2 under Jon Scheyer. Gary Parrish, what's your record?
I'm going over. It's going to be me, Greg McDermott, Scott Drew, Dan Hurley, Shaka Smart, and Jon Scheyer.
Well, now you've got too many coaches. Before, these guys were with you as they were coaching in the Final Four. Now you have too many coaches to be coaching in the Final Four. So go ahead and inform our listeners which coaches are actually going to be involved in the Final Four and who's losing before then.
Yeah, we'll get to that on a later episode.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'm going to try to keep all my friends at least through the off season. Okay. Let's count backwards from 31. I'm going to give them one non-league loss.
Okay, then who is it? At Arkansas?
That's obviously the most likely place.
Okay, so to the Arizona fans, you're losing to Duke, to Baylor, Scott Drew. Sorry, Scott, GP hates you. You're going down against Duke in the Garden, Cameron North, and then Tom Izzo. Well, you and Tom Izzo have been butting heads for years at this point. Sparty, sorry to break your heart. You're losing. You're losing to Duke.
Doesn't Michigan State always lose to Duke?
Actually, Tom Izzo is like 4-15 all time.
Yeah. So I'm like, what are we doing? I love Tom, but like, what do you want me to say? I mean, the record is the record.
Tom Izzo, just like he had the Zach Edey scoop before anyone, he might even have that scoop before anyone else.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm sorry. It is what it is. I think at Arkansas is the most likely, but they could lose any of those, like the Michigan State game, the Baylor game, the Arkansas game. I just think they're going to go.
Don't be sleeping on the Charlotte 49ers.
Shouts to Bobby Lutz.
Yeah, that's right.
Charlotte was good, man.
They had some years.
For a minute. They could lose to Michigan State. They could lose to Baylor. They could lose to Arkansas. I just think in that series of games, they'll go 2-1.
Okay.
At Arkansas.
There are 4 games, so they're going to need one more.
Well, give me the 4th one. What's the 4th one then?
Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor, Michigan State,
Arizona.
Arkansas, Arizona. I think they're going to go 3-1 in those games.
Okay.
They could lose any of them, but I think they'll go 3-1 in those games. It's all fun. It's all fun and games being Jalen Blakes to you sitting on the bench watching them call the Hogs in Fayetteville, you know?
Yeah.
All right.
People are saying, yeah.
1 non-league loss. Let's go 4 ACC losses.
Okay.
31 minus 5, 26 victories heading into the ACC tournament. That's what I have for Jon Scheyer and the Blue Devils.
Not a year tracking these, right? We got so when these graphics come out, we got the right numbers.
Absolutely.
26-5.
26-5 heading into the ACC tournament.
26-5. Last season, Duke heading into the ACC tournament was 23-8. I am going to go 24-7. I'll say Duke is.
Oh, you don't believe in Jon Scheyer either.
Yeah.
Who do you believe in? Tell me one coach you have faith in.
With 23, 24 wins. Like,
tell me one coach who you actually think is good.
24-7. A very respectable 24-7. I got 2 non-con losses. And then I've got 5 in ACC play, because unlike GP, I'm going to tell you where the losses are going to happen in league play. I'll say they lose at UNC. I'll say they get picked off at Miami. I'll say Virginia gets them at home. That's 3. And I'll say they lose. You know what? I think they get knocked off in Blacksburg. That's happened a few times. And then the big thing with Duke is they didn't lose a home game last season. I think that happens this year. Put me down for actually, it's kind of hard to pick a home. No, I got Virginia. I've got Virginia going in there. I'm almost at 25-6, but I said 24-7. I'm sticking to it. Maybe Clemson goes and does some damage. Brad Brownell, maybe. Bueller.
I mean, maybe.
Bueller.
I mean, maybe. You know.
That's what I got.
Tell me one coach who you actually think's good at his job.
I think almost every coach that we've talked about, if not every coach we've talked about, I think does a very good job. I think the coach of the reigning national champions, I think Dan Hurley does a pretty good job. Jon Scheyer, it's early, but I think he's doing just okay. Continuing to recruit at the highest of levels, did a really nice job.
Not a clip that. Clip it very tight. Where Norlander says, Jon Scheyer, I think he's just doing okay.
Okay.
Clip that.
Nada. Now clip GP doing that as well. Back to back.
Nada, don't clip that. I believe in Jon Scheyer. And I proved that with my projected win total heading into the ACC tournament.
People could just think that you're just sucking up to the coaches.
Maybe I'm just sucking up. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay.
So what? I want people to like me.
All right.
You know, I people who know me don't like me. So I'm trying to expand my group of people who enjoy me. And so it's got to go toward people who barely, talk to me a few times.
I tell you, one way to make a lot of friends is to talk good about Duke. That'll get people to really like you. That's for sure.
It's why I've always, more than anything with this team, I just hope that Duke finally gets the calls that it deserves.
Over under 1.5 calls Duke gets next season. You know what? I'm optimistic. I'm going to say over.
I think under. They've been getting screwed for years. Got screwed against Virginia last year, as noted.
Yeah.
Go under. Duke, you give Duke a good whistle and good health, that's the team that could win the whole thing. We'll see how it goes. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck. Shouts to Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening, watching Eye on College Basketball Podcast. You're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, rate, review, leave comments. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in those comments. Thank you again for being here. We're going to talk to you again real soon. Deadleg, let's see how smart you are. Who's up next?
It's a coach you hate, Dusty May.
Oh, Dusty May.
It's a coach you have hated and downplayed for years. FAU is our next one. That'll be coming on Monday.
Florida Atlantic as a preseason top 4 team. Can Norlander dig it, or does he despise it?
Bye-bye.
There's only one way to find out. That's listening to the Florida Atlantic episode. It's up next. Till then, take care.